not supposed to be here. We are so innocent. There's never been anything like it.
Yeah, I don't think I want to hear his explaining, but he might have some explaining to do. That was NBC's Laura Jarrett with that report. Joining us now is NBC News legal analyst and former federal prosecutor Andrew Weissman. Andrew, the way Stormy Daniels handled cross-examination, there was a lot of zingers in there. I mean, it was in terms of, just to watch, kind of like, ooh, psych. But was it useful for the prosecution to have her being, number one, for the prosecution, so detail-oriented, and then almost defensive at the defense cross?
Great questions. So I think the details, I think the state argued, and I think they're right, that the details mattered. And the reason is this. They said it gave motive for the president to want to pay the hush money. In other words, what the jury was hearing, whether they believed it or not, because you don't actually need to believe it for this all to have worked, which is she had a very detailed story, and that's the detailed story that Donald Trump did not want the electorate to hear in October 2016, right after the Access Hollywood tape came out. And so the more sort of salacious, the more detailed it is, the more that he would have a motive to make sure that nobody heard it. Even, by the way, if it were not true. I was in the courtroom yesterday, and the one thing I would say is I was somewhat surprised. She came off as a smart, careful, and unflappable witness. It was really quite remarkable. She gave very thoughtful answers. On the cold page, it may read like a zinger, but the questions were so, at times, intrusive. They were so rude at times that, she actually was, I would say, is fairly controlled in responding. I think other people might have been more upset at the questions. I think a lot of times defense lawyers ask those questions so they do rile up the witness so that the person loses their temper. And she didn't fall for that.
Interesting. Claire McCaskill, I'll let you take it to Andrew, but also would love to hear your take on how this went. Danny Savalos is concerned about Stormy's testimony, whether it was necessary at all, especially causing problems on potential appeal. What did you make of the detail that she brought to the table, and how important was it to what the prosecution is trying to prove?
Listen, the only reason that the prosecution had to put Stormy Daniels on is because Donald Trump had his lawyers stand up an opening statement and say the sex never happened.
Right.
And once that occurred, then the prosecution had to put her on the stand, because if they hadn't, then imagine what the closing argument would have been. Was all Trump's choice to present a defense that this sex never happened and this is all made up and I'm a perfect family man. This is the hole they're in, the defense team. But Andrew, I got to tell you, I read most of the cross last night because I was curious. And I know I've heard you speak that this particular criminal defense lawyer is very experienced and knows what she's doing. I was shocked that she went on for 7 pages about whether or not they had dinner. Normally, a courtroom lawyer gets the sense when they're losing the jury that they're banging on a door that is never going to open, and all they're doing is irritating people. It seemed like to me that she was doing that, and I can't figure out if she thought it was effective or if she was required to do it by her client, because I thought huge swaths of this cross-examination, I would have given her an F if I was grading moot court, especially some of the questions where she knew what the answer was going to be, like, you made this up, didn't you? I mean, that's like a rookie mistake. I mean, why would you ask somebody that when you know their answer is going to be a definitive no? I don't get it.
Well, you picked, Claire, the absolute worst part of the cross-examination for the defense. For everybody I've talked to, it was sitting there listening to the cross-examination on whether she went to dinner went there to have dinner or whether she actually ate dinner did go on and on and on and on. And it was one where I just think that Susan Necheles must not have been sort of reading the room and didn't understand. And this is sort of something you really need to do if you're a defense lawyer, is know, when a line of cross-examination isn't working, you move on. I mean, not every line of cross-examination is going to work. So you try different things. You have different irons in the fire, so to speak. And that was the absolute lowest point. It was trying to bring out an inconsistency in her story as to whether when she went to the room, she was actually eating dinner with Donald Trump. And she has consistently said, I never ate. It was just a bizarre moment. So I agree with you that Susan Necheles, it was not her finest moment. She did much better in talking about the financial motive and all of the money that she's made and the ways she's tried to make money. That was a better line of cross-examination. I thought the other thing that you played that was, I think, a particularly poor line of cross-examination that felt very classist and sexist had to do with her history in the adult entertainment business, where that's where, frankly, Stormy Daniels, I thought, was somebody you almost were rooting for. And she was talking about, essentially, that doesn't mean that I wouldn't be shocked by seeing a 60-year-old man suddenly wanting to have sex with me when that was not what was expected. And she had a funny line about, when I see my husband every day and he can be in his boxer shorts, it's very different if I came out of my bathroom into my bedroom and saw Donald Trump there. It was shocking and surprising. So she just had some very thoughtful answers to a cross-examination that at times, as you said, Claire, really fell flat.
All right. How do you feel, again, we talked a little bit earlier in the week about the timing of this. It seems like they're moving people through at a blithering pace.
Absolutely. So, that is a sign of a very skilled prosecution team to keep things moving. I think that very soon, if it's not today, I think very soon we will see Michael Cohen. That's the last sort of big witness. I would make a point that, we're all talking about Stormy Daniels because obviously it's a very, very colorful witness. But just understand the logic of this. She was cross-examined hammer and tongs by the defense here. But the witnesses who really hurt her were Hope Hicks, Donald Trump were Hope Hicks and David Pecker. And they were treated basically with kid gloves. So it's a very odd thing going on in this courtroom. Logically, as Claire knows, you would go after the witnesses that really are hurting you in the trial, but they really didn't in any way try to impeach Hope Hicks or David Pecker, who have devastating testimony with respect to Donald Trump. And here, as I said, it doesn't really matter whether there actually was sex with Stormy Daniels or not. There still is a motive to suppress her story. And it's clear she was paid hush money to suppress her story. All of those are givens.
Former federal prosecutor Andrew Weissmann, I'm sure we'll be talking to you again a lot next week. Thank you so much for your analysis this week. And still ahead on Morning Joe, President Biden's threat to withhold certain weapons from Israel if it moves ahead with a full-scale invasion of Rafah is creating division among Democrats. NBC's Kristen Welker joins us next for more on that. And as we go to break, Willie, what do you have planned for Sunday today? I'm excited.
Got a good one for you this weekend with Mr. Jimmy Fallon, our neighbor upstairs at 30 Rock, as he celebrates 10 years as host of The Tonight Show. Can you believe he's been in that chair for a decade? He took us inside his office, went backstage, showed us some secret places, some trap doors where he comes out on the stage. Amazing stuff. So much fun with Jimmy, recounting his 10 years in the chair and his rise from a kid who loved SNL and loved comedy to be on SNL and to host The Tonight Show. Jimmy Fallon coming up on Sunday today over on NBC this weekend. And we'll be right back here on Morning Joe.